This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Let's do report cards for the Cleveland Browns. We're going to start with the coaching staff. And we're going to go through this and try to layer it through different aspects of each coach's job. We're going to start with somebody who's not talked about as much, Bubba Ventrone. A lot of hype into the Bubba Ventrone hire. He was a well-regarded special teams coach coming out of Indy. And the things that, in my opinion, have improved have very little to do with Bubba Ventrone. So if I look at the special teams unit and I look at who's improved this year and what's improved, it's definitely field goal making. That's improved tenfold, no doubt about that. They're much more consistent field goal making team this year than they were last year. No doubt about that. But that has more to do with Dustin Hopkins than it does with Bubba. Bubba's job really isn't to coach Dustin Hopkins. Bubba's job is to, do the punt coverages, kick return stuff. And yes, I think they make less bad decisions, but they still aren't good at this punt return logic. They aren't. The one area also, you got to give Bubba some credit here. They're much better at kick returns. They're not that much better at punt return defense, but kick return defense, they are. I think they gave up like 2 50-plus yard returns last year or something crazy like that. They haven't given up one yet. So they are better there. But I don't know. The improvement just hasn't been great on that side. Not to say that Bubba's a bad coach, but this isn't the greatest year for him. And for that, so far, 3 quarters into the season, have to give him a C-. Like, special teams has been fine. But the things that have been better are more individual performances. Your kicker kicking much better, your punter punting well, having a good season. That has to do with personnel and just personal performance more than it has to do with anything that they're doing from a coaching standpoint. All the stuff that happens on special teams where you feel like coaches really do matter, the punt return logic, the kick coverage, all that stuff. Yeah, I just haven't seen that drastic of an improvement for them this season. So that's why I will go with a C-. Like, it's better than what was here last year, which was the base expectation, but not so much better that I'm like raving or even impressed with what the job has been by Bubba. Let's go to Jim Schwartz, who had a hot first two quarters of his report card, right? Had that A+ coming out the season with the first 4 games. The defense was, first 4 weeks, the defense was on fire. And then the next 4 weeks, a little bit up and down, got like a B-. How does this work for this week? Well, the 4 games we're evaluating are basically the Pittsburgh, the Baltimore, the Denver, and the Rams games. Talk about a mixed bag, right? You go from the beginning of this stuff having some of the best, most dominant performances you've had all season to some of the worst performances that you've had all season. It's been a mixed bag for Jim Schwartz. The defense has been very inconsistent on the road, and that's continued far too long this season. I would say, and it's not, here's the point I want to make about the road defense. It's not that they're not as good on the road than they are at home. Like, you can expect something like that. But if they were still like a pretty good defense on the road, they just weren't as good as they are at home, I think we'd all be able to live with that. Like, that was the Baltimore game. They weren't as good as they are at home against Baltimore, at Baltimore, but they were still a good defense against Baltimore. But some of these road performances, they haven't even been a good defense. Like, I would throw the Rams game into that category. They weren't even good against the Rams. I would throw the Bengals game, not the Bengals game, my bad, the Broncos game into that category. And I would throw the Colts game into that category of games in which the Browns defense just wasn't even good. Like they went from being one of the historically good defenses to flat out bad in 3 games, just missing tackles, letting plays go that have no business going for the distance that they have, just not being disciplined, giving up points, just bad defense, just all around bad defense. 3 games this year, all on the road. That's the thing that concerns me the most about this, and that's why I'm gonna go B, just a solid B for Jim Schwartz. Not an impressive outing for these last 4 weeks. Had some great moments in these last 4 weeks, but just not super impressive when it comes to the expectation that we expect from this defense. And also the road stuff is just really starting to become a real question. Like, why aren't we even a good defense on the road at times? Like, why do we devolve into one of the worst defense with one of the most ineffective defenses in the NFL suddenly when we're on the road versus at home? It doesn't make that much sense. And it makes me worry because is this, the one thing that changes with being on the road is energy, right? And when you run out of energy and the crowd's there to pump you up at home, you get more energy. And what I'm concerned about is this more of a energy thing than a home road thing? Like you just don't have as much energy on the road than you do at home. And this is what this defense is when we're not all hopped up on the highest energy possible. It's kind of concerning. But we'll see what it turns into going forward. Kevin Stefanski, well, not Kevin. We're gonna talk about Kevin later. We're gonna talk about actually Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. He's the most forgotten man on the coaching staff, and for a good reason. He's not really in charge of the offense. He's just there to play a role as an offensive administrator. So, how do I grade Alex Van Pelt? On one hand, you could look at the Browns' point outputs and just say they're awful. He's awful. F grade. I don't think that's fair. Okay. The same way the defense kind of gets graded on a different curve because of how good they are and how capable those players are and how capable those players have proven themselves to be. I have to grade the offense on the curve because let's be honest, this is not the offense we thought we were going to be playing with at this time. There's no Deshaun. There's no Nick Chubb. There might not even be any more Coop for a couple weeks here because he's on concussion protocol. There's no left tackle. There's no right tackle. How can I give somebody an F grade for putting together winning football over 4 weeks? Well, at least 500 football over 4 weeks when that much has happened to your starting offense. I think it's more or less a credit. And why I think it's been a good job by Alex Van Pelt that you've been able to get guys up, get guys ready on the offensive side of the ball. I think Elijah Moore has stepped up in recent weeks. I'll give Alex Van Pelt a C+. Now let's go to Kevin Stefanski. How do I feel Kevin Stefanski has handled his coaching responsibilities in 2023 so far, 3 quarters into the season? Well, the record is 7-5, and that's certainly pretty good considering all of the injuries you have. It could be better, right? I think 8-4 would probably be best case scenario. We talked about 7-4 being best case scenario. Well, not 7-4. 7-4 being like the best case scenario you could have hoped for. You're a little bit below best case scenario, but you're still pretty high up there. Like this season could be a disaster, and the record could reflect that. But right now, you're still in the playoff hunt. You're still in the race. The road woes with the defense, that's something that Kevin also has to answer to. Like, why is this team so unprepared defensively on the road? And why is it that we have so many lackluster performances on the road this season? It doesn't really make much sense. That's something that Kevin should have a better handle on than he does right now. The other stuff that people complain about Kevin with, the play calling, like, yeah, he'll have a bad game here or there, but I mean, like we're talking about the fact that there's so much conversation between Joe Flacco and DTR and who should start and who should play. The fact that we're this excited about Joe Flacco tells me everything I need to know about Kevin as a play caller. He's pretty good. So I have no concerns with that. I think he's a fine enough offensive mind. I think he can add some things or stand to add some things, get creative, especially in the red zone. I don't think they're creative enough in the red zone. And when they are, it's more risky than creative to me. Like they just don't play off of as much things as they can. And maybe that's because they can't do one thing extremely well to play things off of like that. But it's lacking. The red zone offense is lacking, in my opinion. So those are my criticisms of Kevin, but he's done a good job keeping the team together. He's done a good job of getting something out of this jumbled mess of what has been an offensive roster, like a just injury to hell season here. There's no way he can get a negative grade given that the team is where they are right now. I would say if I had to give a grade to Kevin, I feel like a B- is what I would give him. Like good, but like it can easily turn into a C to a C- if the season doesn't finish right. If you get to 10 wins, it turns into a B+. But it's been a rough hand, but he's done pretty good given the hand that he's dealt. And if he finishes out this season relatively all right, then I think we all know that he's going to be safe for the next few years. But that's my grade on Kevin. Overall for the Browns, given everything that they've been through this year, I would have to give the team itself a B grade. Like I think they've done pretty good given the circumstances. They haven't knocked it out the park. Again, I think 8-4 would be knock it out the park territory with you feeling good about this team in the playoffs, but they haven't done that. We're still trying to figure out who's going to play quarterback for the rest of the season. Like there's still too many open questions on this team for me to say that this is a A+. You knocked it out the park, given that the hand you were dealt. But it's a pretty good job, right? I don't think anybody thinks we would be at 7-5, even thinking about the playoffs, given these injuries. I think everybody would have predicted that this team would have been, we would have made all the jokes about giving the Texans the #1 overall pick or something like that if I would have told you all of these injuries would have happened. But the fact that that hasn't been the case tells me that this team is in a pretty good place when it comes to coaching, management, and everything else like that. So they've done a good job. I'm going to give them a B because of that. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.